The hangar at Naval Air Station Coronado buzzed with controlled chaos. Helicopter blades thundered overhead, salt air clung to uniforms, and somewhere in the distance the Pacific rolled against the shore like a living heartbeat. Inside the steel structure, Navy SEALs stood in loose formation, their posture relaxed but their eyes sharp. They were legends in the making, operators who had survived deserts, mountains, and oceans. Men who wore scars like quiet medals. At the far end of the hangar stood a single woman in desert camo, her boots dusty, her sleeves rolled to her elbows. She wasn't tall, she wasn't loud, she didn't carry herself like someone desperate to prove anything. Her name was Lieutenant Aria Knox. She had just returned from her third deployment. And she had just broken a record no one expected her to touch. The Admiral himself had flown in to congratulate the task unit. Admiral Robert Hensley was a decorated career officer, broad-shouldered, silver-haired, the kind of man who had spent more time at sea than on land. His presence alone stiffened spines. He walked down the line of SEALs, shaking hands. "Outstanding work in Helmand," he said. "Command is proud." When he stopped in front of Aria, there was a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. "You're Knox?" "Yes, sir." He studied her for a long second, glancing at the commendation file in his hand. 3 high-value targets confirmed. 12 enemy combatants neutralized in one night. Longest Overwatch hold without relief in the unit's history. The SEALs nearby exchanged looks. The Admiral gave a half-smile. "Only ants," he said casually. "That your kill count? Or are we missing something?" A few men chuckled. It was meant as a joke. A light jab. A test. The hangar air seemed to thicken. Aria didn't flinch. She met his eyes steadily. "No, sir," she replied calmly. "Ants don't shoot back." Silence. The chuckles died instantly. Even the helicopter outside seemed to fade into the background. The Admiral's smile vanished. He looked at her again, not as a novelty. Not as an exception. As a warrior. "You lost someone," he said quietly. "Yes, sir." Her voice didn't crack, but something behind her eyes flickered, a memory. Flash. Night. Dust storm. A village swallowed in darkness. A sniper's crack echoing through alleyways. Blood on sand. Her best friend, Petty Officer Marcus Hale, gone in under 3 seconds. "Continue," the Admiral said. Aria inhaled slowly. "They weren't ants, sir. They were trained insurgents using civilian structures for cover. They had range, elevation, and numbers. We had one rooftop and a failing radio. We held until extraction." The Admiral studied her face. "How many confirmed?" She didn't hesitate. 17, sir." The hangar fell completely silent. 17. That wasn't a fluke. That was precision. One of the senior SEALs muttered under his breath, "Damn." The Admiral closed the file. "And how many of your team walked out?" "All of them, sir. Except Hale." Her jaw tightened slightly. "Yes, sir." The Admiral nodded once. "Well done, Lieutenant." But the story didn't start in Helmand. It started years earlier, when Aria Knox was just a girl growing up in a small coastal town in Maine, where the ocean was cold and the winters colder. Her father had been a Marine. Not the loud, storytelling kind. The quiet kind. The kind who woke up before sunrise and ran even when snow cut at his lungs. He never pushed her toward the military. But he never told her she couldn't either. When she was 12, she watched footage of a rescue mission on television, SEALs pulling civilians from floodwaters after a hurricane. She didn't see men with guns. She saw discipline, precision, protection. "I want to do that," she told her father. He studied her carefully. "It's hard," he said. "I know. They won't treat you like the others." "I know." He nodded. "Then be better." She trained through high school. Running before dawn, push-ups until her arms trembled. Studying tactics and military history. She learned to shoot before she learned to drive. When she entered the Navy, the skepticism was immediate. "SEALs?" A recruiter laughed lightly. "That's ambitious." She didn't laugh. "I'll qualify." And she did. But nearly broke her. The freezing Pacific surf. The endless log carries. The instructors screaming inches from her face. Men twice her size quitting beside her. But she never quit. During Hell Week, when sleep became a myth and pain a constant companion, an instructor leaned close and sneered, "Why are you still here?" Through chattering teeth, she answered, "Because I don't break." He stared at her for a long second. Then he walked away. When she earned her trident, it wasn't applause that greeted her. It was doubt. Some operators didn't say it out loud. But she felt it. She ignored it, because missions speak louder than opinions. Her first deployment was quiet reconnaissance in Syria. Long hours, little sleep, No glory. Her second involved a hostage extraction that went sideways. She carried a wounded teammate half a mile under fire. Her third was Helmand. That was where legends began. The target compound had been a known insurgent command hub disguised as a school. Drones confirmed armed personnel. The problem was elevation. The enemy controlled rooftops and had overlapping fields of fire. Aria volunteered for Overwatch. Knox, that position's exposed, her team leader warned. I can hold it, she said. He studied her. You sure? Yes. She climbed alone. The rooftop was cracked concrete and rusted rebar. From there, she could see 3 alley approaches in the main courtyard. The firefight started at 0213. Chaos erupted below. Flashbangs, shouts in Pashto, gunfire. Then the counterattack came. Figures emerged from adjacent rooftops. She adjusted her scope. Breathing steady. One squeeze. Another. Wind correction. Distance. 17 targets. Each shot deliberate. Each shot protecting the men below. At 0249, her radio crackled. Knox, we're pinned east side. She shifted position, exposing more of herself to enemy fire. Rounds snapped past her shoulder. She didn't duck. She fired. At 0312, Hale was hit. The bullet came from a minaret 2 blocks away. Aria spotted the glint. One shot. Silence. But Hale didn't get up. They extracted at 0400. She didn't cry until she was alone. Back in the hangar, days later, the Admiral's words echoed in her mind. Only ants. She understood something then. They would always underestimate her. And she would always let them. Because surprise is a weapon. But Helmand wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Weeks later, intelligence flagged a new threat, an insurgent leader known only as the Architect. He was coordinating attacks across provinces, always 2 steps ahead. Every attempt to track him failed. Until Aria noticed something in satellite overlays. Patterns. Movement corridors that formed a hidden supply chain. She brought it to her commanding officer. It's a ghost, he said skeptically. No, she replied calmly. It's a system. He leaned back. You're saying you can find him? I'm saying I already did. The room went silent, and that's when everything changed. Because when the mission launched, it wasn't just about eliminating a target. It was about proving something far larger. Not to the Admiral, not to the SEALs, but to the world that had once laughed at a 12-year-old girl with a dream. The insertion was scheduled for 2,300 hours. High altitude, low visibility, 0 margin for error. Aria checked her rifle, then looked at the team around her. They no longer saw a novelty. They saw a shield. As the helicopter blades roared to life, one of the senior operators leaned toward her. You good, Knox? She gave a small nod. Ants don't shoot back. He smirked. Damn right. The doors opened. Cold night air rushed in. And they jumped. The desert swallowed them whole. Below, the Architect waited. And he had no idea who was coming. The desert night was darker than ink, swallowing sound and shape alike as the team descended. The wind tore at Aria Knox's gear, but her body remained steady, disciplined, controlled. Thousands of feet below, the land stretched in jagged silhouettes, compounds, dry riverbeds, scattered lights that flickered like distant stars. They landed 2 kilometers from the suspected command hub. No chatter, no wasted movement. The team moved like shadows. Aria stayed slightly behind point, scanning thermal overlays through her optic. The pattern she had identified weeks earlier had led them here, a supply rhythm hidden beneath civilian trade routes. Ammunition moved disguised as grain shipments. Couriers rotated every 48 hours. A ghost didn't leave footprints. But a system always did. They reached the outer perimeter at 0017. 2 guards, suppressed shots, silent collapse. Inside the compound, dim lantern light glowed through dusty windows. The Architect was rumored to never stay in one place more than 6 hours. If her calculations were right, they had 23 minutes. Breach, flash, shouts. The first wave of resistance crumbled quickly, but then the second layer emerged. Reinforcements from underground tunnels, heavily armed. This wasn't in the brief, one operator muttered. It was, Aria replied calmly, pivoting to cover the stairwell. We just didn't read it. Gunfire erupted in tight corridors. She moved with surgical precision, covering blind spots before they became threats. 2 hostiles down. 3. A grenade clattered near the hallway corner. She reacted instantly, kicking it back with brutal force just before detonation. The blast shook dust from the ceiling. Clear left. They pushed deeper. At the center chamber, they found him. The architect wasn't imposing physically. Average height, civilian clothes, calculating eyes, the kind of man who weaponized intellect instead of muscle. He looked directly at Aria. "You," he said quietly in accented English. "You are the rooftop ghost." She didn't answer. He smiled faintly. "You ruined 3 years of work." "Good," she replied. He reached slowly into his coat. Every rifle in the room tightened on him. But instead of a weapon, he pulled a detonator. Red light blinking. "Not everything is about killing," he said softly. Aria's mind raced. She scanned the walls. Load-bearing pillars. Wiring patterns. He wasn't bluffing. The compound was rigged. Timer. Her team leader barked. The architect's thumb hovered. "Choice," he said. "Take me alive, and you all die here. Shoot me, and maybe you escape." Milliseconds. Aria made a decision. One shot. Clean. The detonator dropped from his hand, but his thumb had grazed the switch. A distant rumble echoed beneath them. "Move," she shouted. They sprinted. The first explosion collapsed the east corridor. Dust choked the air. Flames licked through doorways. Aria hung back half a second, grabbing a wounded operator whose leg had been crushed by falling debris. She hoisted him without hesitation. "Go," someone yelled. Another blast. The ceiling began to cave. She calculated distance versus shockwave speed. They wouldn't make the original exit. "Roof," she ordered. They pivoted toward a vertical maintenance shaft. Climbing under fire wasn't in the plan. Neither was survival. She boosted the wounded man upward first, ignoring the tremor in her own arms. One by one, the team climbed. The final explosion tore through the lower levels just as Aria pulled herself onto the rooftop. The entire compound imploded seconds later. Flames shot into the sky. Sirens echoed in the distance. Extraction bird inbound. 3 minutes. They formed a defensive perimeter. The wounded operator looked at her through pain-hazed eyes. "You stayed." She checked his tourniquet. "Of course." Helicopter lights cut across the smoke. As they lifted off, the burning compound shrank beneath them. Mission accomplished. But cost counted differently than numbers on a report. Back at Coronado weeks later, the official briefing room was packed. High command, intelligence officials, even media liaisons waiting outside. The architect's elimination dismantled a regional insurgent network overnight. Attacks dropped by 40% within 2 months. The Admiral stood at the podium. He spoke of courage, strategy, sacrifice. Then he paused. "I made a joke," he admitted, glancing toward Aria in the front row. "I asked her if her kill count was only ants." A ripple of uncomfortable laughter moved through the room. He continued. "She reminded me that ants don't shoot back." Silence. "What I failed to recognize then," he said firmly, "was that Lieutenant Knox doesn't count enemies. She counts lives saved." Every eye turned toward her. She shifted slightly, uncomfortable with attention. After the ceremony, reporters tried to approach. She declined interviews. She preferred quiet. But word spread. Young women entering naval training began mentioning her name. Recruitment inquiries shifted. Doubt didn't disappear overnight, but it cracked. Months later, during a joint training exercise, a new SEAL candidate approached her hesitantly. "Ma'am," she looked up from cleaning her rifle. "Yes, they said you once held a rooftop alone against 17 hostiles." She shrugged lightly. "I had good visibility." He smiled nervously. "Were you scared?" She considered the question honestly. "Yes." That surprised him. "You didn't look scared." "Courage isn't about not feeling fear," she said. "It's about choosing your job over it." He nodded slowly. "Why did you really join?" She looked out toward the ocean. "For the same reason anyone should," she replied. "To protect the person standing next to you." Years passed. More deployments. More missions classified beyond headlines. She turned down promotional desk roles repeatedly. Field first. Always. Then came the mission that nearly ended everything. An intelligence leak compromised a covert extraction in North Africa. The team walked into an ambush. Heavy machine gun nests pinned them against a dry ravine. Air support delayed. Comms jammed. Aria assessed terrain quickly. High ridge, 300 meters north. Exposed approach. "No one's making that climb," a teammate warned. She checked her ammunition. "I am." Before anyone could argue, she moved. Bullets tore through sand around her boots. Halfway up, shrapnel grazed her side. She kept climbing. At the ridge crest, she eliminated the first gunner with a precise shot. Second nest adjusted toward her. She shifted position, using a rock outcropping as minimal cover. Controlled breathing. Wind cross current. Fire. The second gun fell silent. Her team advanced, but the third nest remained hidden. She spotted muzzle flash through peripheral dust. She repositioned, and that's when the round hit her shoulder. Pain exploded through her body. Her rifle slipped, but she caught it before it fell. Below, her team was seconds from exposure. She forced herself upright despite blurred vision. One final adjustment, one final squeeze. The third nest went dark. Then she collapsed. When she woke up, it was to white ceilings and antiseptic air. Naval Medical Center, San Diego. Surgery successful. Recovery uncertain. Doctors recommended limited duty. Command suggested strategic advisory roles. She listened quietly. Then she asked one question. How long until I can shoot straight again? Rehabilitation was brutal. Physical therapy at dawn. Range retraining at dusk. Scar tissue ached in cold weather. But she returned. Not because she needed glory. Because she refused to let pain define her ending. Years later, Admiral Hensley retired. At his farewell ceremony, he requested one specific speaker. Lieutenant Commander Aria Knox. She stepped to the podium in dress whites. Medals lined her uniform, but she didn't mention them. Instead, she told a story. An admiral once asked me if my enemies were ants, she began. The audience chuckled softly. He taught me something important that day. The admiral raised an eyebrow from his seat. He reminded me that perception can be wrong. That leaders grow. That strength isn't about who you underestimate, but who you empower. The room quieted. We don't serve for kill counts, she continued. We serve so someone else can sleep safely. When she stepped down, the admiral stood and saluted her first. And that moment traveled farther than any headline ever could. Years after active combat duty, she transitioned into advanced training command. She didn't lower standards, she raised them. During a lecture, she once wrote 2 sentences on the board. Ants don't shoot back, but doubt does. Then she faced her trainees. Defeat doubt first, she said. Everything else is tactics. Her legend grew quietly, not through numbers, through lives. Operators she trained led successful missions worldwide. Civilian casualties in her operational theaters dropped due to her precision-first doctrine. She never chased fame, but history has a way of recording impact. On the 10th anniversary of the Helmand mission, a small private ceremony was held for Marcus Hale. She stood before his plaque. 17 confirmed, hundreds saved, 1 lost. I kept my promise, she whispered. Wind moved gently across the memorial garden. Somewhere in the distance, helicopters lifted into the sky. The world remained imperfect. Danger never vanished, but because of warriors like her, it bent, slightly, toward safety. And somewhere, a 12-year-old girl watching footage of a rescue mission felt something spark inside her. Maybe she would face laughter. Maybe someone would joke about ants. But maybe, just maybe, she would answer the same way. Calm, unshaken, precise. Because true strength doesn't shout. It holds the rooftop. It carries the wounded. It climbs the ridge. It returns after being shot. It turns jokes into lessons. And it protects.